Pre-Columbian California was one of the most linguistically diverse places on Earth. But how did it get that way? Humans have lived in California since at least 13,000 years ago. Some Native American peoples in pre-Columbian California were probably descendants of the first humans to settle in that region. With this degree of linguistic diversity, some of those languages must have migrated in later. Unfortunately, there hasn't been a lot of research done using DNA data to map historic population movements in the Americas. This technique has been much more common in Europe, where people have been very interested in the origins of the Indo-European language family and how it's spread. So a recent study applied DNA techniques to study historic population movements in what's called Arido-America, which is a dry, arid region in the US Southwest and Mexico. The researchers sampled DNA from ancient humans who lived anywhere from 7,400 years ago to 200 years ago. And they found evidence that there was a northward migration out of Mexico and into California around 5,400 years ago. This supports the idea that California's languages and indigenous peoples were a mix of people who had originally settled there, plus later migrations that came into the area. In fact, they also discovered that the Chumash people, a Native American group living in the Channel Islands off the coast of Santa Barbara and the surrounding area, are the direct descendants of the same people who were living in the area 7,400 years ago. These Chumash languages are a small family of languages that aren't related to any of the other languages of California or anywhere we know of. So this means that the Chumash languages and the Chumash people probably represent an earlier layer of history from those original human settlements before other migrations came into the area. And this is actually somewhat typical of DNA studies in the Americas. Genomic evidence often shows that Native American peoples are the direct descendants of the people who were living there millennia ago. This is the opposite of Europe, where most modern inhabitants descended from somewhere else. But this study has a plot twist. The migration path that the researchers found happens to line up with the distribution of the Uto-Aztecan language family. The Uto-Aztecan family is one of the most geographically dispersed language families in the Americas. Linguists have all sorts of competing theories about where this language family started. This study suggests that this migration was the migration of the Uto-Aztecan peoples, starting in Mexico and migrating northward into California. Now, other linguists have proposed this before, but they didn't have genetic data backing their claims, and they thought that it probably correlated with the spread of agriculture out of Mexico to the north. However, the timing in this study doesn't match the timing of the spread of agriculture, so it suggests that this migration was independent